On this episode of Narcissist Apocalypse, we talk with an abuse survivor named Lemon. And Lemon was in a toxic relationship with a future-faking narcissist. It's a story of scapegoats, self-love, button-pushing, self-defense, isolation, believing the lies you're told, and coping mechanisms. Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. With me today, I have Lemon. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you for asking. And today we are going to hear your story. And it is a relationship story, but you also grew up in a household where you were the scapegoat. So people are going to learn some family stuff today. They're going to learn some relationship stuff today as well. You went through a lot. Your relationship was 10 years along. Oh, and I forgot to tell everyone who has never heard this show before. I almost forgot. My name is Brandon Chadwick. I apologize for not doing that right away. Sometimes I forget. But back to Lemon here. Lemon really went through a lot. 10 years is a long time to be in an abusive relationship and to endure what she went through, to deal with so many put downs of who you are every single day. There are trigger warnings in this episode. We do discuss physical abuse. There is suicidal ideation that is also mentioned. So for people that do not want to hear any of these things, please turn this episode off now, because I know how triggering these things can be for everyone. And that's it for our warnings here for today. I really want to thank Lemon for being here. It's not easy. So now, without further ado, Lemon, the floor is now yours.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone. I just wanted to talk about my life with the narcissist and how my life was before this 10-year relationship with the older narc. When I was a child, in my childhood, I was raised by a narcissist. It was my mom. I was the sixth born of 8 kids. So there was 7 girls, and I was the sixth girl. And then it was one boy. He was the baby. And so I was raised by a single mom. And she had a lot of toxic and just very abusive behavior that she would display. And a lot of that would be displayed towards me. So I would definitely say that I was the scapegoat. So our family was really large, and so there were different roles in our family unit. And unfortunately, I was the scapegoat. I was blamed for everything, things that didn't have anything to do with me. Any of my mom's frustration, anything that she would take it out on me, and she would take it out on me just openly. So it was a lot of humiliation, and I believe she showed my siblings how to treat me. And so since it was like 7 others and I was one of the babies, I took a lot of bullying, just a lot of put downs, physical discipline, a lot from my mom. And I could see the difference in between the way she would discipline my siblings, and with myself, she would be a lot harder on me than she would be with my siblings. And, just pretty much neglected, and singled out a lot from my mom. So I was scapegoated. So I feel that I was groomed from a very young age to I was just groomed and I was just lined up, I feel, for this narcissistic, the 10-year relationship with this narc. And so I just felt like I never really had much of a chance, and things were just going to have to play out the way that they did, since there was no intervention. So there was a golden child. My oldest sister, she was the eldest girl, firstborn, and she was definitely the golden child. She could do no wrong, even though she did and I won't tell her story, but I would say, and I wouldn't tell it was just a situation involving two siblings and it became I can't say that it became one of a sexual abuse relationship between two siblings. And I would say that just because the sibling did try to get help and make it public. So that's why I don't mind saying that part, that it was, a very toxic relationship and dysfunctional relationship between two siblings that became abusive towards one. And, well, that golden child, even though she was involved in that and she was the perpetrator, it's as if it was just swept under the rug, but it affected me so much, and it didn't even happen to me, but it affected me so much. And we weren't ever able to talk about it. And to this day, she still is everybody just loves her. She just I just can't see past some of the stuff that she did. And I feel like I didn't do anything to anyone. Like, I never hurt anyone. Like I said, I was one of the younger kids. So, I was easily, taken advantage of by the older kids. So I don't remember or recall doing anything. Not that I was some perfect angel. I was a kid, the rest of them. So I'm sure I had, I'm sure I just was being a kid, but I just never did anything to them. And I always wanted to ask them, what did I do to you? But I don't ever recall doing anything to them to harm them or hurt them or embarrass them in any way. So for them to all just treat me so poorly over the years, it just always hurt me and left me confused.
And did you ever have a sibling that you were closest with at all, or no?
Absolutely, I did. I had a sibling that I was very close to. We were 1 year apart, and she was the one who would she would play with me, but she wouldn't play with me like with the other siblings. Like, there was like a lot of group activities, and they would always leave me out. And I just remember just feeling left out. And I remember maybe after the game was done, being played or whatever, my sister, my older sister that's a year older than me that I was close to, she would come and she would, play with me. She would say I was sad. And she would just sit with me, and she would be the one who would try to include me, in things.
So I'm going to make the assumption that you will have issues when it comes to not feeling love, and you can correct me on that if I'm wrong, because a lot of the time I'm wrong on my assumptions. And I guess, how are you feeling about yourself otherwise, and how do you feel about your family, and do you want anything from them?
Well, yeah, it is fair to say that I did not feel love. I did not feel love from my family of origin, from my siblings or my mom growing up. And so I think it's fair to say that I kind of resented them at the same time. I always did have, always knew that. Well, back then, I wouldn't even say it was resent. I just felt like I hated them. So I just never wanted to I just never cared to try to impress them in any way like that, or try to get them to really even accept me. I just felt like after they rejected me so much and treated me so poorly, I just couldn't wait to grow up and get away from them. I just wanted to get away from them.
So eventually you did. And then you ended up was your first relationship with the narcissist, or did you have other relationships in between?
Well, I did. My first relationship was with a narcissist that I had a child by. I didn't know he was a narcissist either. It was just very toxic and dysfunctional. But so right before the 10-year relationship with the narc was about a 3-year relationship with someone I had a child with. We had a child together. And then right after that, I met the narc.
So you're going into this relationship as a single mom. How are you feeling about yourself before you're getting in?
Really, I was really feeling like I really didn't have a self. I know I did not love myself. So I was really just in a dark place. Like I had very low self-esteem. I had very low self-worth. And I know that I was looking for acceptance, some sort of acceptance. Like I was just out on my own in the world, and I was just really looking for someone to love me, to accept me, to just make me feel love. So I know I was vulnerable right before I met that narc. I was very, very, very vulnerable.
So how did everything begin?
Okay, so, we lived out in an apartment complex together, and I guess I had been noticing him, and it's almost as if he wanted me to notice him. It was just little things now that I look back on it. Like, he would, roll his window down, if we were, going passing each other, maybe in a parking lot, whereas his window was rolled up. I could see him rolling his window down, just little things he would do to make himself noticeable. And it went on for a couple months. And then one day I got off work. I had gotten in my car. I saw him across the parking lot where he lived. And I saw him acting like he was doing something in his trunk. And I just remember saying hey to him. And then from there, we started to, call each other. We exchanged numbers, and we started calling each other, texting each other, just basically constantly. It's right away. And I started to go over to his apartment, and I used to spend a lot of time at his apartment with him. And at the time, my best friend, she lived with me. We were roommates. And so she would watch my children a lot. And I would be across the parking lot at his place. Basically, it was him, we wouldn't be spending time together. It was more so he was allowing me to spend time with him. And that made me feel good. And it made me feel good that he was showing me so much attention. Even though we wouldn't go on dates, it was just always everything was kicked off. Everything started right at his apartment. We didn't go on dates and be around other people. It was just very to me isolated, the way that we started off. Okay, so July 2010 is when I had met him. And so July, August, September, October, November, it was just pretty much a lot of love bombing, a lot of him. Because at the time, I had the 1-year-old from the previous relationship. So immediately he started to make it his daughter, saying, that we were a family, and just saying, that, he was just want to do family things, even though we hadn't even, I knew it was weird because it was we hadn't even put in any work, to be a family. We had just met, but he had make it so that I don't know what you would call that, but he would just like make it so that we were a family. Like it was just so, I don't know, like it was just so weird that he just took that strong liking towards my baby, you know, at the time. But then it made me also feel good because her dad was absent. You know, he just wasn't coming around doing anything. So I think that was part of the love bombing, because he really got me with that, with just being so interested in my daughter, my 1-year-old, just like wanting to show her so much love.
So he stepped into a void that was missing, not just in your life, but in the life of your daughter. And for you, that was just in a way like, oh, this is amazing. It's a little bit of a miracle here. This other person isn't part of my daughter's life. They're not trying. They're not doing anything to help. And here's this person that wants to be a family man.
Yes. And so he stepped right into that role, and he just started playing, you know, the dad part or role or whatever. And I felt like that was a void, you know, something that was, you know, just missing. So he really got me with that. Like, he got me hooked. There was a lot of grooming those first 4 months. He would talk to me for literally, and I'm like, how is this normal? And how, I don't understand how I was able to even just go through that, like, and able to make it through that without saying, like, shut up, or like, you know, something like to get this dude to stop. But it's almost like he would just like almost imprison me. Like, I would have to just sit there and listen to him talk for hours about his childhood, his caretakers, those who were supposed to be taking care of him, how, you know, they were neglecting him, and just story after story after story. And I really felt bad for him, because I felt like he was telling my story. You know, like, and I hadn't told him any of this stuff, like about, you know, my, you know, just being neglected as a kid, feeling alone, feeling like I'm in a world all by myself at 5. Like, no 5-year-old should have to feel that way, like, you know, like they have no one. So, like, a no safe place. And when he told me his stories, it sounded so similar to mine that I felt for him. And I think he knew that. And so I think, well, I know every day he will remind me, and this is 10 years, every day he will remind me of his childhood, some story or something dealing with the past. Constantly.
So he's playing a victim, you're feeding into feeling bad for him, and at the same time you feel understood because he's gone through something similar. And here we have like a combination of these two things, plus him stepping into the role of the dad, which I assume probably has you really hooked into him. Was there anything else about him that was over the top that got you hooked into him, or was this enough?
Well, just the one thing that is enough, but right there, that would be enough. But then he added the whole thing about him wanting a family. And I want, you know, he just said he never had a family. He used to tell me he never had a family. He always felt like nobody was checking for him. He always said that. And I felt the same way. So that really got me right there, that he wanted to have a family. And that's what I wanted so bad, because I never had it. And I wanted it so badly, a family of my own. And so that's what really got me, just those 3 things.
So now you have this shared future of a family that you both want. He's not just playing dad to your daughter. Here's someone who feels your pain of growing. You know his pain too from how you both grew up. And it's like you're, I guess, kind of these wounded souls from your childhood with this, you know, this exact same pain. And in a way, and I've mentioned this on other episodes before, it's kind of like a fairy tale in a way, to kind of meet someone who has gone through the same things as you, understand you, and you're both looking for the exact same thing in life. It's a real big, you know, fairy tale kind of come true in a lot of ways of not having to explain yourself. Someone really understand you in that way. They really get you in that way. It's a real fairy tale or dream kind of scenario in some ways. And it's something that you could easily buy into here, and you did. But the thing is that he knows that you have bought in at this point. So how long does it take for the devaluation to begin?
The devaluation started occurring. That happened. It was a certain incident in November 2010 for Thanksgiving. So by that time I was just all in it, and so usually on the holidays, I would go back to my hometown because I was living out of town at that time. I would go back to my hometown and, do the dinners or whatever, the family dinners. And but this time I told them I wasn't coming. And I remember being on the cell phone, and I remember him being like right there, listening to the entire thing, listening to me going back and forth with my family members, just letting them know that I was spending the holiday with my new boyfriend. This is what I wanted to do. And, I just felt like, they really had no right trying to tell me that, where to spend the holiday. I wanted to spend it with this new guy. And I just remember I can remember him just taking it all in, because it was like I was screaming and we were, yelling at each other, my siblings and my mom, like over the telephone. And so I remember not wanting to spend the holidays with my family. And I remember him, I just think that he really liked the fact that, I was, putting myself in isolation with him, even though my family was so unhealthy as well. But he just liked that I was pulling away from my family and just my loyalty. I had loyalty towards him. So I don't know, right after that, he just started to be really, really mean. Right after that Thanksgiving, he just started to be irritated by everything I did. But still the mask, it wasn't slipped completely off, because it was just future faking. So he was future faking, just saying that we was going to be a family. And it was right after that Thanksgiving is when the devaluation started. Really had he would like I said, be irritated by me, and I just was and he would say things he would put me down in certain ways, tell me that he could do better than me. I remember him telling me he could do better than me, that his ex-girlfriend was better than me. So I remember him starting to put me down during that point. And right after, and we were planning a move together. Actually, we already had planned to move to down south, because this was up north. We were living up north in the Midwest, and we had planned to move down south. This was the 5th month.
So these things are moving really fast now. 5 months, you're already planning to move down south together and making a giant move. So when this devaluation pops up here, what are you saying to yourself? How are you feeling? And are you thinking, I've made a giant mistake, but you still don't know what to do?
Well, when he did that kind of thing, when he was devaluing me, I felt I felt so little. I felt complete, I hate to say it, but just trash. I just felt because he had me, he knew how to push all my buttons. He knew how to control me emotionally. So he knew how to make me feel good, and he knew what to do to make me feel bad. So when he would just be mean towards me and irritated towards me, and say mean things to me, yes, I felt absolutely, positively horrible. I felt like a piece of trash. Yeah, I just always felt really, really low when he would do those things, and I just felt rejected. And that's when I would feel really lonely. I felt really, really lonely when he would devalue me. And then I would feel really good when he would, because it was so weird, because he really never treated me nice and did nice, loving things for me. He would always just tell me to do that for him. But that was part of, I always felt good. If he would ask me, oh, what are you cooking? That would put us back on a good track for me. Or if I was like, just doing anything of service for him, which I did a whole lot of, so it would be like devaluation, and then what are you cooking, or I need my clothes cleaned, or, washed, or this house is a mess, or something like that, So that would always, even though it was still devaluating, but I don't know, it made me feel like we were on the right track again.
So being happy to do things for him isn't really a good thing. It's still kind of a devaluation because you're really at his beck and call. It's a really good thing for him. So he would put you down, and he then really wouldn't love bomb you per se, but you perceived it as a love bomb because he let you into his life. And I'm going to hark back to something you said earlier, which is you said at the beginning of your story, when you were first spending time with him, you said he was allowing me to spend time with him. You weren't spending time together. I really found that to be an interesting statement, and that you were aware of this even back then. And even in your initial meetings with him, you made him notice you in a sense, and then you kind of chased him. So from the beginning of this whole entire thing, there was this power imbalance that was going on, and you could feel it, and he knew it too. And this was all really unsaid stuff that was going on, but this imbalance was going on, and you both sensed it, and you were feeling that doing things for him was good enough for you right off from the bat. Like, just saying, to reiterate this once again, that you said, you were he was allowing you to spend time with him. You weren't spending time together, and you knew it at that time. So really right off the bat, this person that you were in a relationship with for 10 years, in those first few months, he was in total control already. It might not fully seem like it when you're like so far into it, but you kind of knew it, and it's there. And it's really interesting to hear you say all of these things and know it, and like deep down know it was there, and to feel that it was there. But being accepted, I think, is probably the big word here, that you were accepted into this world, and you were coming from a world of not being accepted, and you were able to accept this even though they were breadcrumbs in a lot of ways, and you couldn't see it as breadcrumbs at the time because at least it was something, and it was something that you never even had before. So it's really understandable that happened, or that this was going to happen, based upon how you were raised. And it's sad, but it's the truth. And I'm happy you are where you are. I'm stating that already, that you're so aware of these things. It's really nice to hear that you have all this awareness. So I kind of interrupted and railroaded that for a bit. So you, I guess, were eventually moving down south. I think that's where we were last were at. So take us through that process.
We were planning that move to down south, and we actually did it. And then during the process, the physical move, he was just so agitated. He was so agitated about myself, the kids, but he would never really be just like openly mean to the kids, but it was just like be really a whole lot towards me. But to me, he was verbally abusive just from the yelling and the screaming, and in the house, period. That was unhealthy and dysfunctional for everybody. Even though it was being directed towards me, majority of the time. And so, like, even though all this was going on, and I was feeling like unsure I just already was so deep in and I didn't know what to do. And I already had made arrangements and told everybody I was moving and really had it in my mind that we was going to just run off and be some happy little family, and it was just the complete opposite of that. So we end up moving that December 2010, just myself and him, my 2 kids, and I went 10 hours away from anybody I knew, anything I knew, and I was 25 and he was 40 at that time. So, so we went to down south and things just got progressively worse. And just it just got totally progressively worse. He started to cheat. And once we got down south, his mask completely slipped. He just took it off and just threw it down. I mean, he just completely took it off and just started to openly tell me how much he regretted moving down south with me. Just telling me that I was, he'll call me disgusting. He'll say I was disgusting. I was fat. He could do better. That was his main thing. He would always tell me he could do better than me. He's done better than me. That I was a loser. He would tell me I was a loser a lot. And all this time, I would just take all of this in. But at the same time, I did stand up for myself, but I couldn't stand up for myself on a daily basis as far as taking a stance for myself. But I would stand up for myself when he would just poke me, poke, constantly call me names. And it'd be like reactive abuse was really bad, because when he would constantly poke at me and devalue me, and just blame everything on me, I don't know, I would just explode. Eventually I would explode, and I was no angel, but because I feel like I have to be accountable in this, in some way to be able to properly heal. So the reactive abuse was really bad. I would cuss, want to fight, be just very vulgar, just say anything, and it was very bad. And so the abuse cycle just kept going. Basically the love bombing was just gone. He would always future fake. He would discard, all the time break up with me. All the time break up with me. He was an enabler. So even though he'll call me a drunk, which I don't ever believe I was a drunk, but I did use an alcoholic rather. But I believe that I did use alcohol, beer, IPA, craft beer, stuff like that, to just get the monkey off my back and be able to relax. It was just
you were coping.
Yes, I was coping. And he would be the one who would provide the beer, and the cigarettes, because that's what he tell me. All you do is sit around and smoke cigarettes and drink beer, and it just wasn't true, But he would always say that. But then at the same time, he would bring he would buy the beer for me or buy the cigarettes for me, and then talk about me for taking it. So it was just very a roller coaster, emotional roller coaster ride with this man. And he was a lot older than me, so he was already ahead in the game, way far ahead than I was,
So you moved down there, and you were 25 years old ish.
Yes. Yep. Sir. Yeah, I was.
And you're, I assume, in an area when you got there, you didn't know a lot of people. Maybe you didn't know anyone at all.
Not anyone.
And you are with this person for a 10-year period as a whole. So all of this abuse is going on for a very long period of time. And you're in, you don't really have family you can rely on or trust. Do you have people in your life like that you can trust, that you can talk to about what's going on during this time? And, at what point are you saying to yourself, I have gone crazy. My reality isn't reality. Like, what is kind of going on in your head as far as like, I need to escape, or are you that not even in your thought process because your day to day is just so you need to be present in every hypervigilant situation that it's going so fast and furious that there is no time to think of the other stuff.
No, you're right. There was no time to think of any of that stuff for at least 7 years of the relationship. I didn't think about how I could, escape or I escaped through, drinking. And so I never thought about how to get out. I was trying to make it work, like literally still trying to make it work. And it's like, it was clear now in hindsight that it was never going to work, but I was trying to make it work because this was a family, this was my family. So day to day, no, not for 7 years, that I finally I just had enough. Like, I just had enough. I was just breaking down constantly, just crying, having mental breakdowns, really thinking that, like, am I going crazy? And I just remember, like, oh, God, it was just so horrible. We would, one time we was on the expressway, 85 North or something. And so we were there on the expressway, and it was always a problem every time we went out in public, something that he would do. Oh God, he was just horrible. So like, I just hated going anywhere with him after a point. So this was like getting to that point where I just was starting to hate going anywhere with him, and just like saying to myself, I just got to get away from this guy, and so I was in a car with him, and I wanted to open the door, and it was like an impulse. I almost was going to do it. Open that car door and just jump out. The only thing that made me not do that was that my daughter was in the back seat. But that's how that would give a accurate depiction of, like, of how I was feeling at that time, that I would want to jump out of a moving vehicle going 70 miles an hour on the expressway, because I was just getting to that point where I just could not take it anymore. I just felt like I was on a hamster wheel. I just felt like I was just going crazy, like literally going crazy, because he gaslighted me so bad. He isolated me so bad. Like, I had no confidence to make friends. And I was a young girl, I was only 24, 25, 26, all these, my 20s with this guy, half of my 20s, and then the other half of my 30s. So I was still young. I was a young lady. I should have been living life. He knew that. He knew what he was doing. He would gaslight the heck out of me. I knew that he was cheating. I knew that when we were out in public, he would be, he would find other toxic people, because it's a lot of toxic, dysfunctional people, and so he would find people to, just connect with, and they mostly were women, a lot of the time it was a woman, and they would be flirting and stuff, and they knew that was making me feel bad, and I would not stand up for myself in them situations. I would just sit there and just sit in the feeling of, like, feeling just very low, feeling empty inside, and just letting this thing go on, and I would have an attitude a little bit, but the reason why I really wouldn't have an attitude, because it happened so many times like this, because he would then turn it around and he would say, "You're always making problems everywhere we go. That's why I can't take you nowhere. And you were embarrassing." And he would say this in public. So I just didn't want to double the humiliation. Like, so I know I sometimes just wouldn't say anything because I know if I said anything, then he would turn it around again and make it that I'm starting drama and I'm starting trouble. But really he was. And so the gaslighting had gotten so bad that I just really didn't know if I was coming or going, even though I knew that I was right about things. I just didn't have anybody who I could talk to and who could maybe validate that for me and be like, you are right, because I was so isolated. I did not have any friends, like literally any friends besides my childhood friends that I still have to this day. Like I have 2 of them, but we weren't close enough. I isolated myself from them too, so we weren't close enough for me to share any of this with. I couldn't tell anybody that this was going on. Like, I just did not know how. And then they wouldn't believe me if I told my family because I tried that and they would basically take his side, and eventually they would get in contact with each other. Somehow they got each other's number, probably through me. I'm not sure how that happened, but they did get each other's numbers and they did talk a few times behind my back about me. And so I knew I couldn't trust them, and plus they were the family of origin I came from that already had set me up for this in the first place. So if I did tell them I would brought them, anytime they did find out that I was doing bad, when I was in a bad place in my life, that just made them I felt like they were happy when I was sad and down and out. I always felt that way. And so I knew I couldn't trust them. And so I just had no one to turn to. And things just got worse and worse and worse. And like I said, it happened with 7 years into the relationship when I just really started to feel like I didn't want to really live. I just was just tired of it all. And so I started to look up abuse, like verbal abuse. Like I would look at verbal abuse and just abuse in general, and the narcissistic, abuse came up like when I Googled it, and I just related and I could identify, with that, so much. So I just kept researching it and just praying to God, that he could help me. Like I would pray so hard. And so it took like 3 years, like from 2018, 2017. That's when I started to just get to, the low point and started to research abuse and just see what I could do about it. If there was anything I could do, to change my life, to change my kids' life, to get us out of there. I just started to slowly build myself up. And I learned about gaslighting. And I knew that's what he was doing a lot of, like, because I would catch him red-handed cheating, because I go to his phone, I go in his phone, and I would just see him just blatantly exchanging messages with another woman, talking about, the good time they had with each other and stuff like that. And I would always catch him on dating apps. He always had a profile, and he would literally tell me that that's not him, that that's an old profile. But at that point, we had been together so long, so how old could it be? So he was cheating very bad from off of like POF. And I believe he was very promiscuous. And so, but he would always tell me this stuff wasn't happening. So that would make me feel really crazy when he would do that. Like, it would make me feel absolutely insane. And so, I was able to, what's the other thing with Grey Rock. Grey Rock helped me a lot as well. Just using the Grey Rock technique, just like not always reacted to every little thing. And also, I just started to like get really irritated by him after a while. Like he started to irritate me, with how much he would talk. And I never got a chance to talk. I never got a chance to share my feelings, but he could always share his feelings. He would shut me down if I ever tried to express myself. It was always like, oh, you're being negative. I'm being negative, but I thought we were sharing feelings, right now. I thought we were exchanging stories about our day, and he'll tell me he had such a bad day, and I would be there and like, oh, how, ask questions. I would be interested, I would try to share my day, and it was, oh, you're being negative. I can't listen to all this negativity. You're just a negative person. And so I really got sick of that. And I just got really just fed up with him being so arrogant and making everything about him. I don't understand how everything became about this man. It could be we were on the way taking my daughter to school. That would be about him. He would start talking about himself, talking about when he was going to school. I'm just like, oh, like you could never enjoy any moments with this man. It was never like an enjoyable times with him. So like the beginning of the end just occurred when I just really got sick of it, and I just started praying a lot and researching and building myself up, and just slowly but surely I was able to become strong enough where I just like pulled away completely. And this was like in 2019, like at the end of 2019. And so then at the beginning of 2020, when it was the pandemic, when the shutdown happened and stuff, he made that all about him. And then we lived in an apartment complex where he started to become romantically involved with a neighbor. And it was so obvious, and it was just, at that time I felt so hurt, and I was humiliated. Everybody knew, in the apartments we were living in. And so what I did was, that was in May of, March. Well, it started happening like right there about March, April. But May, I did take me and my daughter, and I left and went to a hotel. And it was for like 2 weeks. He didn't call. He didn't try to figure out where we were at. He just, I didn't hear from him or anything. And so I had went back home. I stayed in the city, but I went back home to the apartment that we still share together, and most of his things were gone. So he basically had moved out when I went to the hotel, because I just couldn't be around him and the girl that he was cheating with. She was right next door. So, that was just like horrible. So, I still had hopes that maybe, he could, even at this point, like, and this is the 10th year, and I just still really wanted things to work, but I knew that they couldn't. I knew that they wouldn't, and I knew that I was just fed up by, him. I just fed up by his behaviors, because they never changed. And I always kept feeling the same way, and I just could not feel that way no more. So I just had rather to feel the pain of leaving him than to feel the pain of just staying with him and just feeling like I could end my own life. Like I didn't, and so I just, I was hurt when I came back home and saw that he moved all the stuff and didn't tell me nothing about it. He didn't say anything or anything like that. He just moved his stuff out. And then, but he would still come because we still had the lease, and the lease didn't end until the end of July, beginning of August. And so he was still, and this was about June at this point. But so for that month of June, he was still trying to just come around and kind of like devalue us and just be like really mean towards us. But then he had this whole brand new life, and he would sleep in the front room, and we really wouldn't talk to each other. We had a couple explosive fights. in June, and one of them was in a public place where he did physically assault me, and I returned it. So it was like a altercation. It was a physical altercation, and that was the last time that I had to deal with him because I had called the police, and he took off. He took off, and he didn't come back to that apartment because I had sent him a text message or something, and I let him know that I had the police aware of what was going on, and so then I just never saw him again. Like, after 10 years of dealing with him, June 2020, we had a big fight, and I after that I never spoke with him. I didn't see him. He didn't hoover. He didn't do nothing. He didn't call to check on a daughter that he had claimed that was, he loved so much and was her dad. He didn't call to check on her. Absolutely nothing for a whole year, up until actually, which is kind of funny, but up until this month, the beginning of this month. I don't know if I was trying to temperature check. I don't know, because I had written you, and I just was wanting to share my story, and so that had me going back and down memory lane. And I was I don't think I was really triggered, because I don't want anything to do with this man, like at all. So I wasn't reaching out to him like to try to see if he could accept me again. Like, I wasn't looking for anything. I don't know what I was doing, but I did. Maybe I wanted to see, was he still the same, I guess. But I texted him because my daughter had asked about him. And so I told her I would reach out to him. And so I messaged him, and he didn't message me back right away. He waited a couple days, and this was the beginning of the month. And then he texted me, and he said hello or something. I said hi, but right away he asked where I was living, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna entertain. I'm gonna entertain it just a little bit, just to see where he's gonna go with all this. And he did exactly what I thought he would do. He tried to violate my boundaries right away. He asked me for my address. I could not believe that the man asked me for my address. He didn't ask me about my daughter, how she was doing. He asked me what city was I living in. After this is a whole year of having no contact with him, not trying to contact him at all. And he asked me what city I was living in. I told him, and then he asked me for the address. And I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And then I asked him, well, why didn't you try to co-parent after the breakup? And he replied, that's not up for a discussion right now. That has nothing to do with anything. And then I said, oh, I see. So I'm like, okay, he's still the same. And then he started talking about wearing a mask and how I should protect myself and keep myself safe and all this stuff, dealing with the current situation we have. And I'm just like, okay, he's still the same. So I am just in a place of healing and just getting closer to God. And, it felt really good to not want anything from him and to really just be disgusted by him, completely like turned off by his behavior, and so like it felt really good. And so, yeah, I'm just in a really good place right now. Like, I'm going to find therapy for myself and my daughter. And I just lean a lot on God and, the universe. And I do a lot of praying, self-care, just like major self-care, exercising, getting a routine, positive self-talk, I attempt every day to just replace every negative thing that was ever said about me, because I still can hear those voices sometimes. I would just go ahead and tell myself that's not true. I just give myself I allow myself to say good things about myself in my mind. I don't have to keep replaying all of this, all of these negative voices, like from my siblings. Sometimes I hear my mom, just, inside I could hear these things, and it's like my self-talk. So I practice positive self-talk. Like I let myself know that I am easy to get along with, because I feel that way. I'm a peaceful person. I am, a loving person. I'm not a troublemaker. I never have been, but for some reason I had it in my mind that I was a troublemaker, even though I never started trouble with anyone. It was just these narcissistic people who I was dealing with and allowed in my life. And so I do not allow that. I try to nip things in the bud, so this has been like about a year, no contact from my mom, no contact with the narc, and like a year of just really focusing on my daughter and myself, and focusing on God, and just wanting to share my story and try to help someone if I could, just so they can know it's okay,
Well, you did, and you went through a lot, and you've been going through this your whole entire life, and this is arguably the first time you've had some sort of freedom away from toxicity. You've just been around it forever, and you've had this programming done to you, and you still have so much of your life left to live to unlearn those things and get all of those negative thoughts out of your head. And you're going to have the chance to do that. You're going to have the chance to create a life for you and your daughter that you want, that you deserve. And I'm happy that you're here and that you got here. And now that you can do these things, and it sounds like you're not going back to where you once were, and that really, if there was if one person did support you, or if one thing did support you throughout this whole entire thing, was your belief in God, and that strength has gotten you here, and throughout your life, people say, or you said, I cope with drinking, but your belief in your faith really got you through. And I'm happy that you are where you are, and that you're here to help people now and make a great life for yourself. So I'm really proud of you.
And, thank you so much for that, Brandon. And I just want to add this one thing. I believe that this is really important. When I was 5 years old, the trauma, I had a head injury, which was untreated. And I just really, it's like the little girl in me that happened to, just really want just to say that, because for so long, my family told me that did not happen, that it didn't happen that way, that my sister, I was playing with my older sister. She was 3 years older than me. So she was quite, she was bigger than me, and she started to swing me around, and it wasn't fun for me anymore. I told her to stop. And she took my body and she threw it against the wall. I hit my head on the wall, and I fell to the floor, and I cracked my skull in the back. So I had a big open hole in the back of my head that was like, I was going in and out of consciousness. And I remember I never could think the same after that. And I never was the same after that. And if it's one thing that I would have appreciated the most, was just to be able to get that medical care, just so that I didn't have to go through all the pain that I went through, all the way up into my 30s, with headaches, confusion, seeing doubles, just feeling like little bugs was always just eating away at my mind, my brain. Like I just felt confused a lot. I could not keep up with things the way I was supposed to keep up with things, but it was my head, it was in my, something was wrong. And so, after I hit my head, my mom, she did not take me to the hospital, and I was bleeding profusely. I was bleeding horribly, and she wrapped something around my head. She wrapped a sock around my head, one of those long man athletic socks. I remember her doing that, and then she first of all, she put me in a bathtub, and she ran the water in my head. I could still feel that, I could still feel how it felt having that water running in that hole, in the back of my head. And instead of her calling an ambulance, she did this. And she poured peroxide there. I still could remember the feeling of that. The peroxide, a little fizzle, the fizz in my, right in the back of my head. She wrapped a sock around my head and laid me in the bed. And I remember laying there, and that's why I have such a strong relationship with God, because I could feel God, his energy. I could feel his energy in that room with me, for however long I had to lay there. It was a while, I had to lay there for at least, it was some weeks. And so I just could really feel God. He healed me. He kept me alive during that time, because I was slipping in and out of consciousness. And I had nobody there by that bedside with me. Like, I went through that by myself at 5 years old. And the sister who did that to me, she lies to this day. They make a joke about it to this day. They would make a joke about that and say that I'm lying, that I really did hit my head in a bathtub. My mom put me in the bathtub, and they changed the story. And to this day, they try to still do that. But I remember. See, that's what they didn't count on. They didn't count on me remembering. So they really, my mom should have given me medical attention for that. That's for sure, if nothing else, because I suffered a lot behind that, and so that's what I really wanted to say, about like my childhood, the thing that, harmed me the most and stayed with me the most through my entire life was that one incident at 5 that I did not receive medical care for.
And if you had any words of wisdom or advice for people listening, what would it be?
It would be love yourself. You have to love yourself. Like, that's the main thing I learned, Brandon, is that it's very important to have that self-love, because if you love yourself, then you are not going to allow people to come around and treat you badly. You're not going to allow people in your life, who's making you feel bad about yourself, who is causing you harm, because you love yourself and love God. And just always look to whatever, even if it's whatever higher power entity that you connect with, always just stay close to that. And self-care, just practice really good self-care. Really good self-care. That's what I would say. And just know that none of this is your fault. You did nothing wrong. It's these people who were supposed to care and love for you. They are the ones who dropped the ball, and I feel like we are just like amazing people who can go through these type of things and still come out, good people and loving people. So just don't lose that, no matter what, just hold on to that, goodness, and just love yourself.
Well, Lemon, I really want to thank you for sharing your story with us today, imparting all of your knowledge and experience with our community today. You did a really good job. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for being here with us today, showing us who you are as a person and inspiring us. and really just being you, because everyone's behind you 100%. And you really are a big inspiration for everyone. And your healing process is inspiring, and your awareness of everything is inspiring. So I really just want to thank you, and I can't thank you enough. And I'm going to say thank you a million times. So I know I'm getting annoying now, but really, it was a pleasure being here and talking with you today.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you so much for having me, Brandon. Thank you.
And if you want to be a guest on our show like Lemon was today, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Top of the page, there's a button that says guest form. When you click on that button, it takes you to our guest form page. On our guest form page, there are tons of instructions. There's a lot of instructions. Please read them all, and then send us an email at narcissistapocalypse.com. At narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com in that format, or fill it out in our submit page and then press the submit button. And again, please use the format that we have on our guest form page. And we are always looking for as many submissions as possible. And also at narcissistapocalypse.com, we have a support group. So if you need support, please do go to our website. And at the top of the page, there's a button that says support group. When you click on that, it takes you to our very own safe social network. On our social network, we have our very own forum boards. We have Zoom meetings every Wednesday night, Saturday night, and Thursday afternoon. We have episodes that never made it to air. We have ad-free episodes. And if you just want to support our show, just join our support group because it helps us out a lot. Also, things that help us out. Well, if you want to leave us a review on whatever service you use, please leave us a 5-star review if you can. It helps out the show a lot when it comes to ranking and discoverability. People who are listening, if you need even more support, I'm fumbling over my words, but if you need even more support, please do go visit our friends at domesticshelters.org. So if you or someone you know are experiencing abuse, you are not alone, because at domesticshelters.org, they can offer you articles and resources that can help you make sense of what you're going through. They can connect you with shelters and agencies as well. It's a free resource. So please do go to domesticshelters.org to access this free resource today. And that is it for our show today. So from myself and Lemon, we hope you have a good night.